Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ice Time, where we discuss some of the big ideas around the NHL. We are back for another season of this. I'm Mike Fink, and I'm joined by Matthew Zator, who covers the Vancouver Canucks and a whole bunch of stuff at the Hockey Writers. And one of the colleagues who's been on a few times in last season. It's great to have you on to start this season. Matthew, how's summer treating you?
It's been good. It's been slow. I mean, it seems like since July 1st, there hasn't been really a lot of stuff. I mean, there's been like the random re-signings and stuff like that for teams, but and a couple trades involving the Canucks actually. But since Dakota Joshua was traded, that's been it. I mean, I think that was one of the last trades that actually happened in the NHL. I think it was there was a Sharks Avalanche trade as well, but yeah, nothing really has really happened.
Nothing major. It's been the first. I feel like it's been the first quiet July and August. I mean, you have the free agency frenzy, which happens, but it's been the first quiet summer in a while. Maybe there's something in store, but yeah, it's been a few quiet months. Are basically all arbitration RFAs were re-signed. Most, I think, all not except for maybe one or two. We'll probably get into that. And it's been a quiet off season. So we're kind of getting ready for next season now as we head into August. And I find what we're going to discuss today a great way to just get back into podcasting, get back into the season in a way. And it's the lingering questions we still have from the offseason. Basically, the offseason's wrapped up. It's in the rearview mirror. Maybe something could happen. For the most part, all the big stuff is out of the way. So we're going to have, just looking back at all the offseason moves, some lingering questions we still have about some teams or about the league as a whole. So I'll start with you. What's the first one that you have on your mind as we kind of head into the season? What's looking back at the offseason?
Well, right now I'm still kind of curious on what's going to happen with like there are a couple RFAs that are still, the big Mason McTavish and Marco Rossi. They're still kind of in, McTavish and both of them have been in the trade rumors, obviously, for a while. And I mean, Rossi seems like the Wild might trade him, but now it might not happen. But they still haven't signed him. So it's like he wants too much money, and McTavish, I'm not sure with him. I mean, it seems like the Ducks have so much cap space. Offer sheet's kind of off the table. I don't think any teams are going to try that unless they like astronomically overpay him. But I mean, I think the Ducks are going to match anything. I think those are the two guys that I'm kind of wondering what's going to happen. Are they going to drag into preseason training camp? Then we start getting to be okay. Are they going to go into the regular season, which has happened in the past with Nylander's being the most famous one, going into I think it was December before he signed. So I mean, there could be something like that, and those two guys are pretty big to their teams. So I mean, that's the first one that comes to mind at this point. Of course, there are some teams that are still kind of looking at the free agent market. There's a couple guys that are still out there. Jack Roslovic is probably the highest profile free agent still out there. But could you call him a high profile guy? I don't know. He's probably the best one out there still. But yeah, I think but the big ones, I think, are the two big RFAs that are still unsigned.
What Jack Roslovic, you just mentioned him, and just reminds me of what's funny about Jack Roslovic is that when he went to the Rangers at the trade deadline a few years ago, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, it was under the radar type of trade that anyone could have done, but they did it. Whatever, just like a throw-in type of trade." And then he ended up being one of their better players in that playoff run, and he reminds me in a way. I think you could talk yourself into him being that Evan Rodriguez type of signing, which is anyone could have signed him, but one team does, and then it's a great signing because it's like, oh, anyone could have had him.
Mhm.
I wonder what is the holdup as much as like because yeah, he's not one of those players that's like, oh yeah, a lot of teams would target, but at this point you do wonder maybe what could I'll ask you, like, what do you think's holding up the Roslovic market? It doesn't seem like he's the type of player at this point that would because he's how many teams has he been on at this point? I mean it's been 3 and 3 seasons, I think. So at this point
Mhm.
you're not really. holding out, being like, I'm gonna get a huge offer here or a huge
Yeah.
long-term deal. I what do you think the holdup is? Because I mean, you look at some of these teams, like you might as well just give them that
Yeah.
one by four, 1 by 3, right?
Yeah. I mean, from the reports out there, it sounds like he wants like around that money, the 4 million, but he wants term. He wants more than a year, and teams maybe a little hesitant on him because he was pretty good in Carolina. He had the 22 goals, which I mean, 20 goal scorer, I mean, that's pretty good. I and of course, has had his ups and downs over his career, right? And where he's had, I think his last career high was in Columbus a few seasons ago, and since then he hasn't really done much. Like he was really good in Carolina, so I mean, I don't know why the Hurricanes didn't kind of look at him. Obviously, they got Nikolai Ehlers, which is a 100% way better guy to sign. But when you're looking at Roslovic, I think he still has use. I don't know what the money and term. I think the biggest thing is the term. I don't think teams will want to commit that 3 or 4 years to him. Is he going to be the 22 goal scorer, or is he going to drop back to that 10 to 12 goal guy that is frustrating to have in the lineup, right?
Well, yeah, I mean that's once you're paying, I guess, with term, then it's like, okay, 10 goals, you don't want that in your lineup. That's a little frustrating. That's a little frustrating. But you look at it is interesting because like you look at all these teams that are borderline playoff teams, and you're like, you sign Roslovic, that's 20 goals.
Yeah.
The Red Wings have been struggling to get into the playoffs for what, since 2017. Like, bring him. I think they have the cap space to do it. Bring him in. You might as
Hmm.
well. There's all these teams, and it is just one of the things that I think we forgot. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, he's still available. And
Yeah.
why isn't he signed at this point? You wonder about that. You mentioned Marco Rossi, and this actually leads in. This is one of my lingering questions. Was had to do with the Wild, and it is. I mean, Marco Rossi's unsigned, and it is really the big picture of what is going on with the Wild,
Hmm.
because this is a team that I guess it's because we kind of we ignore the Wild on a national hockey coverage sort of standpoint. We kind of like they're we kind of ignore them until the playoffs, and then like, oh yeah, they get eliminated in the first round. So we kind of see them as the same type of team regardless of what they do. And what's interesting about them is there's a lot of paths for them to take this off season, and they're just delaying things. And the big thing, I think, why the Rossi deal is being backed up is because Kaprizov needs to be extended. And when that
Hmm.
happens, then they can address the Rossi deal. And I think there's a lot of reports that they're not going to sign Kaprizov until he's back, until he's like in camp, he's in person. They want to make it a big ceremony or a big deal, which makes sense if he's your franchise player. You want him around. You want to make that a big moment. At the same time, they haven't signed him, and they haven't signed Rossi. And what's interesting about the Wild is they are one of the teams that's been in the middle forever. They've been that middle of the pack team that makes the playoffs and doesn't advance. They haven't advanced in the past the first round since 2015. They could, if they wanted, to tear it down. I don't think they should, and I don't think they will. But they're a fascinating team as the offseason progresses, and you still have Rossi and Kaprizov um on the market or unsigned. So I really just that's my question, is what is happening with the Wild? It's a lingering question I have. Like, I wonder what your thoughts are on just like the Wild in general. I feel like we should have called in Mariah just for 5 minutes just to get her take on this. I don't know if she's going to listen to this, but either way, what's your take on the Wild?
Yeah, the Wild, I do agree. I think they're a very interesting team. They seem to be always in that middle ground. I mean, they can't seem to get out of the first round. Obviously, they missed the playoffs. They've missed the playoffs here lately. But they seem to be getting stuck whenever they do make the playoffs. They get stuck in that they can't get further than the first round. There's inconsistencies either in the goaltending, scoring. But their defense for the future right now, is looking really good. They got a lot of good guys in the system, led by Brock Faber. He's a stud on the blue line. He's probably there. He's probably, I would say, a top 10 defenseman at this point already. And you're looking at a guy that he's going to lead that blue line for a long time. Zeev Bouillon was a great pickup too when they got him. Uh, and those two guys are going to really lead that defense in the future. But as of right now, I mean, like you're looking at the forward group. I mean, yeah, they've got a top line guy. Um, do they really have a legitimate top line center? I wouldn't say so. I mean, Eriksson Ek is good. I mean, he's not like over the top. He's a great two-way center. And then they've kind of put in guys, and like Ryan Hartman's been in there. He's been pretty good. I don't know if they've really had a legitimate top line center for
Unless
a
it's
while, right?
Rossi. Would it be? I mean, because maybe
Rossi, right?
that's that's what they would be betting on. I think Rossi it plays center, and you can project that he would be a top line center. Maybe that's kind of what would hold up an RFA situation where he says, "I can project," because he's coming off of his breakout season. Where I know you're projecting with him in general because he's only been in the league for two,
Mhm.
3 seasons, or he's only had like two really good sample sizes, and last season was his first real big season. But he played he played center. I think at times he split center. He's split time at center, and he could say, I should be paid like a top line center in the Wild. Or like, you're not that yet, and you're not our top line center. So that could be leading to the disconnect. But I think it's interesting where even if he was their top line center, would that be good enough to change what the Wild are? I
Mhm.
wonder. Obviously, you don't want to trade a star player like him. You don't want him. You ask the Avalanche, you ask any team that has the best player available. You do not want to trade them, and you're not going to get better if you do.
Mhm.
I wonder maybe though moving on from him does help their overall in the big picture when they get into the playoffs, what you can do when you're there. I wonder about that, but at the same time, do you want to trade Ross? Maybe you want to say, all right, we'll make you a top line center, or we'll make you a top line player, knowing it might backfire because you are projecting with him.
Mhm.
No, yeah, it is interesting. What do you do with him? And then, I mean, Kaprizov, you're going to resign, so it's just like, do you build around those two
Mhm.
players, and then maybe you lose more depth, which they already don't have depth, and then you're losing more of that in your forward unit. It's kind of it's kind of what's interesting is that they could take this path and then just be more. They'll be more stuck. They'll be more in the same spot that they are, which is like hard to put into words. But that just feels where they. It feels like that's what we're talking about with the Wild.
Mhm. I mean, right now you're looking at their team and their pipeline. They're built defense and goaltending. I mean, Gustafson's bounced back and he's back to being that elite goaltender, so they're fine. And Jesper Wallsted's in the system too. He's looking like he's going to be a starter. So your goaltending and your defense are great. It's your forward group that you're kind of looking at. Are they good enough? Yeah, Kirill Kaprizov's a top line superstar, and you're always going to get 100 points from him. You know what you're going to get. Beyond him, you're looking at a lot of older players like Joel Eriksson Ek has he's been in the league for a while now. You're looking at like Hartman's an older guy now. Rossi's your
Zucker,
young gun coming up, so
Zuccarello
of
also, I
course
think.
Zuccarello's older, and then you got Matt Boldy, who's a star as well. I mean, you got probably two guys right now that you're looking at. You're building around those two forwards, but they're both wingers. So you're hoping that Rossi, like you said, becomes that, or is he? And that's where he's like, are they going to trade him right now? And they want Garen. Garen wants a roster player in return. That's I think the holdup in a trade too. A lot of teams are like, well, we're not going to give you something that it seems like they want a guy that they don't want to take a step back. They don't want to just take picks, prospects. They want a guy that's going to come in and likely be a replacement for Rossi rather than you're just taking Rossi out and you're like, oh, now who do we have? So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. If they do sign him, it's going to be a sign and trade or something like that. We'll see. Or a short-term deal like Byram took, right, in Buffalo, where you're like, okay, we'll give you this. We'll see how it goes. And then it's not a bad contract to trade if you had to.
it's it's interesting where if they were to trade, I don't think they're gonna. I mean, I think the ultimately what it is that Kaprizov's gonna resign, and then it's Bull, and then they address the Rossi deal. Uh, if they were to trade him, I guess the precedent or what you can look at as a blueprint is the JJ Peterka trade, where you don't get the best player in that deal in return. The
Yeah.
Sabres trade Peterka, they get Kesselring. You don't get the best player, but you get a player you can talk yourself into and say that is a good player. They don't need defense, but maybe they, I don't know, get a center who's more of a defensive center, but isn't doesn't have that offensive upside that Rossi has, or maybe they get another winger. Although they're the type of team
Mm.
that's a good case in point for people always talk about why do teams overpay for centers? Why is Sam Bennett being overvalued? And it's like, well, centers are hard to find. The Wild are a good
Yeah.
case in point for that, and it's part of why they haven't been good in the playoffs because they don't win up the middle, and that's like a cliche in hockey, but they're not that type of team. They're a team that's been overlooked all offseason. All of a sudden, they could become the team of the offseason now that we're heading into August. We're talking a lot
Yeah.
about the Wild. We talked earlier about Jack Roslovic. These are like we're really diving into the nitty gritty of hockey. Knowing who's who. I'll ask you though again. What's your other burning question, or maybe it's a big picture question about the league, or just a burning question in general of hockey? But what's the next one that you have in mind?
I mean, I'm gonna stick with, I mean, I'll stick with the Canucks for me because a big question I still have is how, like, the Canucks and the Rangers, these two teams that kind of fell so far in this last season where they were kind of talked about as being Stanley Cup contenders. And of course the Rangers won the President's Trophy and they both missed the playoffs. And when you're looking at what they did in the offseason, did they do really? Both of them done a lot to really say, okay, they could be back next season? I don't know. I think those two teams are going to be ones you're going to be watching. Are they going to do more? I mean, the Rangers, yes, they got Gavrikov, but I mean, does he really move the needle? I mean, he's a good defenseman. They traded K'Andre Miller to the Hurricanes, um, and didn't really get a ton in return. You're banking on a few guys bouncing back. You got JT Miller for a full season. He may make a big difference. And you got the question mark of me, guys that the veterans that kind of fell off in last season. It's going to be interesting to see how they kind of Zibanejad being a big one where he's still a big part of that team. And they were talking about trading him, but he's got the no move, so he's not going anywhere. Where does he fit in it now that JT Miller's there? I think those two teams are going to be really interesting to watch how they kind of bounce back. And of course, the Canucks with Elias Pettersson, how far he fell off, and of course connected to JT Miller there too. Those two teams, of course, those connections are there. But I think this is going to be interesting to see. That's a question right now that both teams, I don't think they really did have done a lot to really answer those questions. Are they going to be back to that team? Are they still going to be non-playoff and kind of where are they in their path? Because they're both not rebuilt, right? So I don't know.
I, yeah, they're both fascinating. They have the same sort of fascinating question about them, which is first of all, did they get better in the offseason, both of them? And the other one is
Yeah.
what direction are they heading in? Because you really don't know with either. I think a little bit of it's a little bit of where they are versus where their GM or front office wants them to be, or where their
Yeah.
GM and front office thinks they are. I think that's the best way to describe it because if you take the Canucks, for example, where after this season, it was like, okay, maybe they should retool. Maybe they're going to enter somewhat of a retool or a rebuild, whatever it is. And they re sign Brock Besser, which I guess you could say that's an addition by default, where it's like, okay, they could have lost him
Mhm.
and they got him back. But you re-sign him, you bring in Evander Kane. They trade Dakota Joshua, but they make they make a few minor trades, but overall, when you look at the Canucks, you're thinking, and they extend Thatcher Demko. That's another one where
Yeah.
you're these are the type of moves you make where you still see yourselves as contenders, you still see yourselves as a team that's going to be in the playoff picture or even better. And the reality is maybe they're not in that they're not there. They're not actually what could be
Mm,
one of the worst teams in their division. The Rangers sort of are in the same category, except for they didn't necessarily keep everyone in house as much as you bring in Mike Sullivan. I mean, you're keeping that group together. They traded Truba in the middle of the season, and then they traded Chris
mm,
Kreider, so it's like uh, a little bit of that moving on from some pieces just to avoid it going stale. But yeah, overall, yeah, I don't know where either team is or what direction they're heading in. And what the other parts of this is like, which team it could be in trouble? Which team are you can it's
mm,
not as much what team might not make the playoffs as much as like which team could really be a mess next season. Look, which team could be the Predators next season? Where
mhm,
if you have a terrible season and you have to start replacing whether it's head coach, GM, front office, whatever it is, or both, and you don't have a great prospect pool, you don't have a great core, and you really have nowhere to go except for have a top five lottery pick, it does leave you concerned. I think I like the Canucks a little bit better, but only a little bit because I think the prospect pool has a few pieces that are intriguing. That you're like, okay, maybe if those players make it onto the roster, slash if they decide to tear it down, you can build around these young players that are in the AHL system or in the prospect pool. Whereas I don't think the Rangers have that. They have a few players you could say that about, but overall, if the
mm,
season becomes a mess, they don't have those players to turn to where it's like, all right, you guys got a ton of minutes and it's going to help. I mean, I
mm.
would ask you like which team, like more like should would you be like how concerning would it be, let's say, for either team if they just have a disastrous season ahead? I like because yeah, they both aren't in great spots.
I mean, yeah, I think both teams, if they don't have a and at least an okay season, I don't know about making the playoffs or anything, but if they do have a really bad season, the Rangers have already changed their coach. So I mean, they're not going to be able to do that again. They just extended Chris Drury. So are they going to get rid of the GM? Probably not. And then you're looking at, yes, Panarin probably will be gone. I mean, he's a free agent next year. So that's a big piece of the roster gone. He might be gone even if they do make the playoffs. Who knows? But then you're looking at, yeah, I don't know. JT Miller's an aging player. He's getting up there. Of course, the Zibanejad's up there in age. They did get rid of, like you said, Chris Kreider, who's an older player. Um, I mean, you got to bank again on a guy like Lex Lafreniere. I mean, he didn't have the best season last year. I mean, seemed like he was kind of getting on track the previous season there with the rest of the Rangers, obviously, because they won the President's Trophy, so everyone was pretty good. But yeah, I think I'm leaning the Canucks maybe in a better spot. Like you got like Lekkerimäki, who's projected to be a top line type winger, so you could kind of build around him. Tom Villander's top pairing defenseman. I mean, you're looking at that. Their goaltending. I mean, they got Lankinen and Demko for the next 5 seasons, both of them. So I mean, one of them are going to be pretty good. I mean, Demko, if he can get over his injury, he's a Vezina Trophy guy. So if he can stay healthy, that's a big question mark going into this season too. Lankinen has shown he can kind of hold down the fort. Of course, the Rangers have Shesterkin. I mean, he's fine. I mean, that's a top end goaltender. Their defense, I think, is a question mark too. Like when you're looking at Adam Fox is, of course, a Norris Trophy winner. So, I mean, he still leads the way, but I'm not really sure about the rest of them. I mean, Braden Schneider has been looking pretty good in the last, couple seasons. Is he going to take the next step to being that bona fide top four
it's
guy?
kind of
I
funny
think that's
that
another
they're
one.
it's kind of funny how both their defense units seem to mirror each other. You have that Norris caliber defenseman leading the way. You have a good secondary defenseman, whether it's Philip Hronik for Vancouver or
Yeah.
Vladislav Gavrikov, and then it's very much questionable. I guess Vancouver has Pettersson now as well. I think with both
Yeah.
these teams though, it's very easy to talk yourself into just last season everything went wrong and we'll regress. Well, not regress as much as we'll progress to the mean where things will be better. Where Pettersson's gonna, for example, with Vancouver, Pettersson's gonna bounce back. Quinn Hughes is gonna play a full season, even though he pretty much did, but the few games that he missed, the team fell apart. So playing
Yeah.
a full season back to that Norris caliber level where he makes a difference everywhere. And with the Rangers, it's Lafreniere bounces back. You have Zibanejad bouncing back. Panarin uh, having a great season. I think what's interesting also talk about mirroring these two teams is that if either team does need to blow it up slash they're out of the playoff picture at the trade deadline. You have Panarin you could trade, and with Vancouver, it's going to be Quinn Hughes. That's the story. It's going to be the story for the next for the while is that anytime they're struggling, well, he is that valuable trade asset. So to keep that in mind, I actually we're talking about these middling teams, and one of the burning questions I have, and I'll actually ask you this one, which is which which team or did any team really move the needle to beat the Panthers or to put is there any team because there's this tier I think below the Panthers which are Panthers the back-to-back champs they're the team to beat and they didn't and they I guess they got better you could say they got better in the off season where they keep their core they keep all their UFAs and they or their big UFAs that is and they bring in Jeff Petrie the tier below
Mm.
them, you look at the teams like the Stars, the Oilers, the Maple Leafs. You could say the Hurricanes got better, so they're actually in that second tier. But those teams that are right below them, did any of them? I mean, aside from the Hurricanes, did any of them get better? Slash, like, did any of them
Mm.
make any moves that make you say, "Oh yeah, they're now set up to beat the Panthers"? Is there any team
Mm.
that did that? I guess the Hurricanes are the answer, but I'm just wondering because you see it's these teams that close the gap on them, and we haven't I haven't seen that from any of them. And on the contrary, you're
Mm.
looking at all these teams that are trying to, I guess, tread above water, and it's not happening. So I'm wondering,
Mm.
are you seeing a team that has closed the gap? Because maybe it's Vegas, I guess, but I don't know. I'm just like throwing
Mm.
out these teams, but you look, it's as much as everyone say, oh yeah, you can't win 3 cups in a row. It's too hard to do that. No team is closing the gap on them on the Panthers
Yeah.
right now. So I wonder which team are you seeing that maybe is doing it?
Yeah, there's not one that comes to mind for sure because I mean you're looking at the Hurricanes, yeah, like you say, they did get better. I mean you're getting Nikolai Ehlers, who's going to be a big needle mover. I mean he's going to get a lot more opportunity in Carolina than he did in Winnipeg, I think, where he's going to be trusted as more of an offensive top line guy rather than kind of being forgotten about a little bit as being not getting a ton of the prime minutes. I mean, the Hurricanes do have a pretty good core of guys without him too. But then you're looking at, I think that's a big addition that they made. They did lose a couple guys on defense that I don't know if Brent Burns really makes a difference, him not being there, but he is a still pretty good defenseman in the NHL. I don't know if they're going to really miss him. But you're looking at, I mean, they got the good goaltending tandem still. But I don't know if I mean, does Ehlers make that big of a difference that you're saying, yeah, they're on the level of the Panthers? They're closer, maybe, with the depth, because that's a big thing. I think to match the Panthers is you got to have a deep team because you're looking at a third line with Brad Marchand. I mean, what teams have a guy that can potentially score 30 goals on your third line?
Like Marchand, Lundell, and Ito Luostarinen. It's a third
Yeah,
line that could be a top line elsewhere. And
yeah,
yeah, it's interesting because the Hurricanes they got better and they didn't move the needle. They're actually part of another burning question I have, which is because they have 10 million in cap space, and I think there are 8 teams that have 10 million in cap space right now, and there's half the league that has 5 million still to work with. And I think with the Hurricanes, it particularly is a big question, which is where is that next move coming from? Slash,
yeah.
is there going to be another move? Because a lot of these teams, it's just funny with you look at these teams in the NHL, and it's like they're they're like that person that's been living paycheck to paycheck like for a few years, and then all of a sudden they just like get a promotion and they have a
Yeah.
ton of money, and they're like, I don't know what to do with it all. Like I can pay my bills now, but I'm so used to living a cheap lifestyle that,
Yeah.
and what do I do? All these GMs, I think, like just have all this cap space they don't know what to do with, and they have it left over. So I guess the Hurricanes, it's kind of that's the burning question. Like, are they going to do something with it? Maybe there's something else in store. Maybe not just for them, but all these teams that have the cap space. Maybe I'll turn it over to
Yeah.
you.
I mean, what do you do? I mean, when you're looking at, obviously, you're not going to throw money at any of the free agents that are out there anymore. I mean, you're not. I mean, there's no, like you say, Roslovic's the big guy still out there. Victor Olofsson is probably their next tier. But you're not throwing tons of money at those two guys. Uh, but then you're looking at trades. Marco Rossi, we mentioned, you could get him. I mean, the Hurricanes could still get Rossi,
Yes.
right?
I mean,
And I mean, he's a guy that really fits what that team is. A skilled, undersized guy. I mean, look at Logan Stankoven and how he's fit in there. I, I mean, he could be a guy that they trade for, and they could give him the money easy. And then you're looking at, I mean, have they been in talks of saying, or maybe they go after Mason McTavish? They're still looking for that second line center that they don't have yet. I mean, guys have kind of tried to be Jesperi Kotkaniemi's been put in that role. There's still talk that he might be dealt to get that money off the books. Uh, he could be involved in a deal like that, where they trade for a guy like Rossi or I mean McTavish maybe. But could they make a move like that? That would really add to that, depth part where you have McTavish as a second line center or Marco Rossi as a second line center. That really makes, I think, the Hurricanes a lot deeper and a lot more dangerous. I could see that. I could see them maybe going after one of those RFAs that are still there.
that's like the other part to this, which is maybe there's a secret move. Maybe there's a big trade we still can get because all these teams have cap space. I mean, you could just look at the Penguins roster and see, all right, there's all these terrible contracts, but all of these teams have cap space. Maybe one of them is willing to say, we'll take on the rest of this contract because we can. And we'll see
Yeah.
what happens. One of those teams that's like, okay, maybe. I mean, the big one is Eric Carlson, which has this like taboo to him, which nobody really wants
Yeah.
to. Nobody wants to be that team that's like, oh yeah, we can be the team that gets him and then makes the playoffs and all is solved. No, no, but the Penguins are the type of team. It's like they have the cap, they have all these players with contracts. Someone could eat up a contract. There's all these teams that have the cap space now, and I wonder if it's not and in the rest of the summer, maybe it's during the season that we see like a team that's, oh yeah, we can
Mhm.
make a big trade one way or another. We're running low on time, so I'll turn it over to you if you have like any quick thoughts, quick questions you just want to throw out there, and I'll try to answer them like real quickly. I kind of threw out mine, which is everyone has a ton of cap space, which is like what are teams going to do with it, or what's like any last quick ones that you have on your mind that you want to quickly throw out there, learning lingering questions that are from the off season.
Well, and one that's, I mean, it's every offseason we talk about is the Buffalo Sabres. Have they done enough to to make a difference now as being a playoff team? Of course, we mentioned JJ Peterka, them trading him. That makes them worse, in my opinion. But you're looking at, and they didn't get a forward to replace them. I think their biggest question is this the year where some of their all these prospects that they got? Is this where Yuri Kulich is the guy that kind of replaces Peterka? He had a really great end to the season where he was scoring, I think, almost every game. It seems like he was on the stat sheet. Kind of took over as maybe that first line center. And Tage Thompson, of course, is still there, but he seems to have kind of put himself in that conversation, maybe being a breakout player this year. Is this a year where the Sabres have done enough and really they haven't done a lot to maybe upgrade their team in the offseason, but is this the year where it actually maybe not doing a ton is something that actually makes a difference? The Sabres are always a question for me before every season to see if they've done enough.
the Sabres used to be that team that I always would try to talk myself into being like, they got Tage Thompson, they got Rasmus Dahlin. Rasmus Dahlin is one of the best defensemen on a team going nowhere. And you always want to talk yourself into it. And it's really, they have the pieces, it's just can they put it together type of thing. And the other part is like,
Yeah.
just what's the process there, which is always a frustrating thing with Kevin Adams because eventually have too many prospects, which they have. They have you if you watch the Rochester Americans, they have a ton of young talent there, and you're like, some of these players could be in the NHL, but like they just keep them there because they don't want to move on from them, and it's it's a frustrating thing. So I mean, the burning question for me, I don't have that as a burning. I'll just be like, no, probably not. But they're oh yeah, they're always that team. They're always that team that you're wondering like, what is it that's holding them back? And there's a ton of stuff. I'm sure like once you look under the rock, you like lift the rock and look underneath and see all that stuff
Yeah.
there. Um, all right, that's all we got, Matthew. Thanks for joining. It was beginning a new season of Ice Time here.
Yeah, it was
All
good. I mean, great to get started again to talk,
right.
even though there's not a lot happening.
Yeah. But for now, that's all we got. We hope you enjoyed. Make sure to check out all of Matthew's great work at the Hockey Writers. You can find my work at the Hockey Writers and on at Hockey Hot Stove as well. All you can also make sure to check out more of the podcasts that are coming up. We begin new season. The off season may be in the rearview mirror, but we got a ton of topics now to talk about, and it's going to be this is the fun time of year. We can dive into some big ideas and not worry about them aging poorly per se. So we'll do that and make sure to tune in next time for another great episode. Thank you.